Red lanterns swayed gently above the village of Qingxi as drums thundered and dancers moved in rhythm. But the harmony shattered when a deafening roar silenced the crowd. A dragon costume surged through the celebration, toppling stalls and vanishing with one of the organizers. Who was hiding behind the mask of tradition, and why? The festival's joy was about to unravel into its darkest night. The village of Qingxi was a mosaic of glowing lanterns, fluttering silk banners, and the scent of jasmine and incense hanging thick in the air. As twilight deepened, the lunar festival blossomed into life. Children ran with paper dragons trailing behind them, old merchants laughed beside their stalls, and the sound of drums throbbed like the heartbeat of the celebration itself. For the gang, it was supposed to be a quiet detour, one peaceful night to enjoy something new before their next mystery. But peace has never lasted long around Mystery Inc. Velma adjusted her glasses as she studied a lantern bearing a curious symbol, one she didn't recognize from any of her research on Chinese festivals. That symbol, it's not standard, she muttered to herself. Standard? Daphne replied, twirling beside her in a flowing red qipao. Velma, you're in the middle of an ancient celebration, not a chemistry lab. Velma gave her a look. Symbols matter. Especially the ones that look like they've been scratched into a 1,000-year-old tradition. Fred was nearby, panning his camera toward a group of performers preparing for the dragon dance. This footage is going to look amazing. It's good we decided to do that cultural documentary series. And I decided to document everything we eat, Shaggy grinned, holding a stick of candied hawthorns. Scoob and I are doing, important scientific research. Rhea. Raver testing. Scooby confirmed, his mouth full of rice cakes. As the dragon dance began, a majestic paper and fabric creature slithered through the square, manipulated by skilled dancers hidden beneath. It was vibrant, festive, mesmerizing. But then came another dragon. From the smoke of firecrackers and the shadows of a nearby alley, a second dragon costume lunged into the square, larger, heavier, and altogether wrong. It slammed into the performer's structure, sending one dancer flying. Gasps echoed through the crowd as it charged toward the stalls, tearing through fabric and wood. Screams replaced music. One of the event organizers, Mr. Liang, tried to intervene. The dragon turned, knocked him down, and in a blur of silk and smoke, dragged him into the night. Panic surged through the crowd. Children cried. People fled. Fred dropped his camera and ran after the beast. Velma tried to note every detail, the dragon's texture, its movements, the strange glow from within its mouth. Daphne helped an elderly vendor up while Scooby clung to Shaggy's leg. By the time calm returned, the mysterious dragon, and Mr. Liang, were gone. Sheriff Wei, a tall, stern man with a gray-streaked mustache, quickly took control. Everyone, go home. The festival is postponed until further notice. But that was no ordinary costume, Velma said, approaching the sheriff. Something was off. And no one just vanishes into smoke. Sheriff Wei sighed. You are tourists. I suggest you enjoy the mountain air and leave local matters to the locals. Velma narrowed her eyes. That sounded like a warning. Back at their guest house, the team gathered in a wooden room lined with paper scrolls and carved dragons. Fred replayed the footage he managed to capture. The second dragon was real, and it wasn't part of the show. Velma pointed at the paused frame. Look at this. The first dragon follows traditional choreography. The second is erratic, more like, it's searching for something. Daphne, still shaken, recalled something strange. Before the attack, I noticed the lanterns formed a spiral pattern, like a dance, almost a message. I'm going back tomorrow to talk to the locals. There's something symbolic going on here. You're gonna dance your way to a clue? Shaggy asked, half joking. Daphne smiled faintly. If that's what it takes. Meanwhile, Scooby sniffed at something tucked into the folds of the guesthouse floor mat. A piece of crimson fabric, coarse and stiff, not like the silk from the festival. Velma took it and examined the texture. This wasn't made for performance. This was made for impact. Later that night, a second organizer, Mei Sun, was reported missing. She'd been seen just before dawn, tending to the altar of her ancestors. Her disappearance confirmed what Velma had feared: the attacks were targeted, not random. Back at the festival grounds, Daphne found an elderly woman named Lien who had once danced in the imperial courts. "Symbols are movements," Lien said, guiding her through a series of steps. "And sometimes, messages are hidden not in words, but in rhythm." As Daphne danced, Velma noticed the shadows cast by the lanterns onto the cobblestones. One configuration revealed a symbol she had seen earlier, a circular glyph surrounding a name, Qian Long, partially burned into the wood. "Wait," Velma whispered. "That's not just a name. That's the name of an emperor. Or maybe someone posing as one." The puzzle deepened. Morning broke with a strange stillness over Qingxi. Where there had been laughter and rhythm, only silence remained. Empty stalls lined the village square like skeletons of a celebration halted mid-beat. A red ribbon fluttered in the wind, snagged on a broken pole, its bright fabric stained with soot. The lunar festival had turned from joyous tradition to a haunted memory, and Mystery Incorporated had no intention of walking away. Inside the tea house that served as their temporary base, Velma unrolled an old scroll she had borrowed from the temple archives. The name, Qian Long, appeared again, this time beside ancient sketches of court dancers and elaborate dragon symbols. Her finger traced the margin, where a phrase in fading ink read: "The Emperor returns when the rhythm breaks." "That same phrase was on the lantern last night," Velma said. Fred leaned in. "Are we dealing with a ghost? A curse?" Velma frowned. "There's no proof of anything supernatural yet. But someone wants the villagers to believe that." Meanwhile, Daphne returned from a morning training session with Lien. Her movements had become sharper, more deliberate. "I think the choreography is more than symbolic. Each step matches a position in the town square. The festival dancers used to form a circle around the emperor during the final ceremony, but that ceremony hasn't been performed in years. And the dragon attacks began when the tradition was broken," Velma added. "Which raises a question: who benefits from disrupting this festival?" Shaggy entered, balancing a tray of buns and tea, his eyes wide. Guys? Scooby and I found something weird behind the abandoned puppet booth." Scooby dropped a cloth-wrapped object on the table. When Velma unwrapped it, they stared at a crimson dragon mask, different from both the festival dragons. Its eyes were narrow slits, its teeth real metal. Fred turned it over. "It's motorized," he said. "This isn't ceremonial. This is engineered." Velma examined the inside. "And here's the real clue, this symbol stitched inside. It's the insignia of the Qian Society." "The what?" Daphne asked. "A secret group dedicated to preserving true imperial traditions. They believe the modern festival is a mockery of history. If they think the village has desecrated something sacred." Fred completed the thought. "They're sabotaging it to send a message." "But why kidnap the organizers?" Daphne asked. Velma's voice was grim. "Because they control the festival's evolution. Remove them, and fear reshapes the community." Later that afternoon, Fred and Velma visited the town hall where old blueprints of the square were kept. While Fred distracted the clerk with questions about security protocols, Velma quietly snapped photos of the underground layout. "There's a tunnel system," she whispered. "Used during wartime. One entrance is beneath the stage." Meanwhile, Daphne visited the tailor who made traditional costumes. She showed him the dragon mask. The old man paled. "This thread is not mine. It belongs to a weaver who lives at the edge of the forest. His name is Mr. Bai. But no one has seen him since the festival began." As night fell, The town was under curfew. Red banners had been taken down. Shrines were covered with cloth. Fear now walked alongside the moonlight. That's when Scooby barked from the window. A glow pulsed from the square. Then the drums began, slow, steady, and off rhythm. A new dragon slithered into view, not in celebration, but in warning. This one bore the full imperial crest. Fred grabbed his flashlight. We follow it. No, Velma said quickly. We trap it. The team split. Fred and Daphne headed to the tunnel entrance. Shaggy and Scooby trailed the dragon from a distance. Velma watched from above the stage, documenting every movement. Inside the tunnels, Fred found scuff marks and candle stubs. Daphne paused. There's something carved into the wall here. She brushed away dust to reveal a symbol matching the one in the scroll, only this time, it was surrounded by 6 names. Those are the organizers, Fred said. All except one, Mr. Bai. Daphne touched a crack in the wall. This isn't just a message. It's a threat. Above, Velma watched the dragon pause near the altar. A second figure emerged from the shadows, hooded, silent. The dragon bowed its head, then turned toward the forest trail. Just as Scooby sneezed. The creature's head snapped in their direction. Like, run! Shaggy yelled. The dragon gave chase, its heavy frame surprisingly fast. Scooby and Shaggy veered into a fruit stall, sending oranges flying. Fred, hearing the commotion, emerged from the tunnel behind the beast. Now, Velma. From the rooftop, Velma released a pulley trap. A cascade of nets fell, too late. The dragon burst through them, dropping a long red banner as it escaped into the woods. Daphne picked up the banner. It was painted with a single word. Repent. Back in the tea house, Velma spread out their findings, the tunnel map, the mask, the symbol on the wall, and the new banner. This is no lone actor, she said. It's a coordinated cultural hijack. And tomorrow is the final night of the festival, Daphne said. If they follow the old choreography. Fred interrupted. They're going to reenact the imperial summoning ritual. But why? Shaggy asked. Velma exhaled. Because they're not just honoring history. They're trying to resurrect it. Daphne's name burned beneath the flickering lantern, inked in red across rice paper. Though she didn't yet know it, she had become the final key in a ritual born centuries ago, one meant to resurrect more than memory. As dawn rolled across Qingxi, the village stirred with tension, fear coiling like incense smoke. Only one day remained before the closing ceremony, and the masked dragon had promised to return. Inside the tea house, Velma pieced together every symbol, map, and movement from the last 2 nights. She pointed to the choreography grid. Look. The dragon's movements match the positions of ancient court officials. They're rebuilding the imperial circle, but instead of dancers, they're using real people. Kidnapped organizers as human pillars in a living ritual, Fred added grimly. But if Daphne's the last piece, Shaggy muttered, can't we just, fly her out of here? Velma shook her head. It's not that simple. If they can't get the real Daphne, they'll find another way. Or worse, force her into it publicly. These people don't care about consent. They care about symbolism. Daphne, overhearing from the window, didn't flinch. She had changed since arriving. The girl who once packed color-coordinated heels was now practicing footwork on temple stones, following the forgotten rhythm. She approached the group, holding a scroll. Lien gave me this. It's a forbidden dance, banned centuries ago after it was used to summon an emperor's wrath during a rebellion. Velma unrolled it. The pattern matched the positions of the 6 organizers. It's not just a dance, she whispered. It's a summoning seal. Outside, Scooby growled low. A cart had rolled into the square unannounced. Inside it, dozens of handmade lanterns, each bearing a single syllable. As the villagers approached, they murmured, recognizing words from old prayers. Fred examined one of the lanterns. They're manipulating the community. Conditioning them with symbols, using fear and nostalgia. Like hypnotic propaganda, Velma said. And tonight, if they complete the circle, we might see the village collapse into something ancient. The team split again. Fred and Velma returned to the temple to find records of anyone linked to the Chien Society. Shaggy and Scooby were assigned to follow the lantern delivery boy. Daphne returned to Lien for one last dance session, but this time, she wasn't there to learn. She was there to challenge her. Who trained you? Daphne asked bluntly, as the old woman set incense by a shrine. Lien didn't answer. Her gaze remained on the smoke. The dragon does not reveal its teacher. It reveals its purpose. I saw your pendant, Daphne continued. It matches the symbol on the dragon's mask. You're one of them. Lien finally turned, her expression unreadable. No, child. I was. Once. Daphne stepped closer. Then help me stop this. Lien hesitated. Then, she moved to the mat. One final dance. But we reversed the rhythm. The broken beat undoes what was summoned. As night fell, Velma returned with a revelation. Mr. Bai wasn't a tailor. He was a historian. And his brother, Zhou Bai, was exiled from academia for pushing a theory that the last emperor never died, but ascended. He believed the emperor could return through ritual embodiment. And if he's behind the dragon attacks, Fred added, he's not just disrupting the festival, he's trying to become the emperor. In the square, the stage had been rebuilt. Lanterns lit a spiral path. Chanting began from unseen voices. Suddenly, Scooby and Shaggy burst in. Like, guys. We followed the delivery cart to the forest and found a camp, robes, scrolls, masks. They're preparing something big. Then the lights went out. Drums echoed. The dragon returned, larger, more ornate, and this time, it walked like a man. He pointed to the center of the square. Bring forth the final dancer. Daphne stepped forward. Not in surrender, but in defiance. She wore ceremonial robes and lifted her hands in a reversed pose. Lien's reversed choreography unfolded like a weaponized prayer, each step countering the ritual beat. The dragon recoiled. Lanterns flickered. Chanting turned to confusion. Velma shouted, "Keep dancing, Daphne. You're undoing the seal." But then, crack. From beneath the stage, a trapdoor burst open. Zhou by himself emerged, robed in imperial garb, his face a mask of painted gold. "You desecrate the emperor's rhythm," he bellowed. "You will not stop the restoration." Fred lunged, tackling Zhou before he reached Daphne. The two crashed into a pile of drums. Scooby pounced on the dragon's tail, pulling it off, revealing the mechanical core and the microphone speaker inside. Zhou used speakers to control the dragon's suit, Velma yelled. He manipulated every attack remotely. The villagers, stunned, began to murmur. Fred stood, holding Zhou's mask aloft. There is no emperor. Just a man in a costume trying to rewrite history with fear. Zhou shrieked and reached for the scroll, trying to complete the final step himself. But Daphne's final dance move shattered the lanterns in a blast of wind. Silence. The ritual was broken. The wind in Qingxi changed direction. After the ritual failed and Zhou Bai was taken into custody, the town should have felt relief. But the air was heavier. Villagers walked silently. Firecrackers no longer popped at night. The festival lunar had not been saved, it had been paused. Inside the temple, Velma traced the burned seal from the broken lantern onto parchment. She compared it to the archives Lien had shown her. It's not from the Qian dynasty, she murmured. It predates even the Shang dynasty. This isn't a summoning symbol. It's a containment seal. Fred leaned over her shoulder. You're saying the ritual wasn't trying to bring something back, but trying to keep something in? Velma nodded. And we broke it. Daphne entered, her skin pale. Lien's gone. Her house is empty. Not even incense ashes left. She ran, Shaggy said. Like, she knew what was coming. Fred turned to the scroll Joe had tried to use. Let's assume the dragon costume was a smokescreen. If Joe was copying rituals to release or control something, what did he think he was controlling? Scooby whimpered and placed something at Velma's feet. A tattered piece of ancient silk, found near the forest. Velma held it up. The design wasn't a dragon, it was a tiger. Not just any tiger, the white tiger of the West, one of the 4 celestial beasts in Chinese mythology. A creature said to only awaken when the world was out of balance. Joe may have been a fanatic, Velma said, but he wasn't entirely wrong. The dragon was a mask, but the real threat is the white tiger. The seal was meant to bind it beneath the festival grounds. And now, it's waking. Suddenly, the ground trembled. In the marketplace, several stalls collapsed. A massive crack split the earth near the main pavilion. Red mist poured out, and from the fissure came a sound, half roar, half chant. Fred pulled the group back. We need to warn the town. Everyone needs to leave. But the mayor, Mr. Han, refused. This festival is older than this village. It must be completed. We have 1 night left. Are you insane? Daphne snapped. We broke a containment seal. We're standing over something sacred, and dangerous. Mr. Han's eyes glazed slightly. The festival feeds the seal. Without it, the tiger will rise. Velma stepped forward. You knew. He nodded slowly. My father was the last keeper. He warned me that the Qian society had forgotten its purpose. Zhou believed in power. But the old ones knew, it was about protection. Every dance, every lantern, every drumbeat kept the balance. Until now. Daphne's voice lowered. Then we need to finish the festival. But correctly. Fred stared at her. You want to finish the ritual that almost summoned a spirit emperor? No, Velma said. We don't finish Zhou's ritual. We restore the original one. Scooby barked in agreement. Ruro. The gang split again. Fred and Velma went to the mountain shrine to retrieve lost scrolls from the original keepers. Shaggy and Scooby were sent to recover remaining villagers willing to dance or play the old rhythms. Daphne returned to the square, where she found traces of Lien's calligraphy painted beneath the modern stage. In it, she found a new pattern, one shaped not like a seal, but like a cage. The gang regrouped before dusk. Velma unrolled the scrolls. We'll need 12 dancers and 4 flame bearers. The pattern must be redrawn in salt. And no digital lights, only fire. As the preparations began, an ominous chant rose from the forest edge. A new figure appeared, taller than Zhou, robed in silver. His face was painted like a tiger, and his eyes glowed faintly. You broke the cage, he said. Now face the beast. Drums pounded in the distance, but this time they weren't part of the festival. They were war drums. The silver-robed figure walked straight into the village center and placed a burning lantern at Daphne's feet. It bore her name again, but this time, it had claws drawn beneath the strokes. Velma's hands shook. This isn't Zhou's work. This is something older, something that used the Qian society to get free. The fire from the lantern turned blue. The villagers began to chant, unwillingly, as if in trance. Then the earth split wider. A white paw, massive and furred, clawed its way out of the fissure. The white tiger had awakened. The earth opened beneath their feet. From the fissure in the plaza, the white tiger rose, fur shimmering like frost, eyes glowing with lunar fire. It did not roar. It simply watched. And that silence, that calm inspection of its prey, was more terrifying than any sound. The silver-robed figure stood beside it, untouched by dust or flame. Daphne stared at the man's face, recognizing the features beneath the paint. "That's Lien's grandfather," she whispered. "But he should be dead," Velma finished. "He is. Or was." The man raised a single hand. At once, villagers dropped to their knees, repeating a chant in an ancient dialect no one alive should have remembered. Scooby backed away, growling low. The beast's tail flicked once, and a row of lanterns burst into blue fire. "We're out of time," Velma said, clutching the sacred scrolls. "If we don't rebuild the containment pattern and complete the ritual, the white tiger won't stop here. It's not a creature. It's an imbalance incarnate. Born of broken promises, cultural disrespect, and spiritual decay." Fred looked around the plaza. "We'll need to split again. If we can gather the dancers and flame-bearers, and mark the plaza with the right pattern, we have a shot. But someone has to get close enough to distract the tiger," Daphne added, tightening her scarf. "It responds to movement. That's why the dances held it back." Shaggy paled. Why is it always us?" "Because you're the best dancers we have," Velma smiled faintly. Daphne nodded. "You remember the pattern I learned? The one from Lien?" "It wasn't just a dance. It was a key." As the villagers fell deeper into trance, Fred grabbed a bundle of fire sticks and salt bags, organizing the younger locals who weren't yet possessed. They raced through the square, recreating the ancient pattern in giant, sweeping motions. Velma directed them with mathematical precision, cross-referencing each stroke with symbols from the scroll. Shaggy and Scooby began moving in circles near the tiger, mimicking the slow, spiraling dance Daphne had taught them. At first awkward, their rhythm gradually found harmony. The tiger's gaze shifted. It paced, never attacking, but never blinking either. Then Daphne stepped forward, alone. Her dance was deliberate. Each step mirrored those drawn in the forgotten calligraphy beneath the stage. Her sleeves fluttered like prayer flags. And the moment she completed her first rotation, the blue flames flickered. The robed man snarled. "You restore what was meant to die," he said. "The old ways are chains." "No," she said softly. "They're balance." Suddenly, a villager, fully under the trance, rushed Daphne with a blade. Fred tackled him mid-run. Velma screamed, "They're being used. The tiger is feeding off their fear." The pattern was almost complete, but a key symbol, the moon gate, had yet to be drawn. It required a calligrapher's touch. Velma looked at Scooby. "Think you can write with your paw, buddy?" "Ruha," he barked and dipped it in salt. Under Velma's guidance, Scooby traced the final curve. The second it closed, the tiger howled. It wasn't a roar of pain, but recognition. Its massive form shimmered, beginning to dissolve into mist. But the robed man wasn't finished. He raised both hands, and a burst of shadow struck the circle, breaking a line of salt. "It's not enough," Velma shouted. "The ritual needs one more thing, a sacrifice." The plaza fell into silence. No one moved. Then Daphne stepped forward. "If the pattern needs a heart to close, I'll do it." "No," Fred said immediately. "We find another way." "There is no time," she replied. "Lien's grandfather gave up his body for this spirit to rise. Someone must give theirs to make it sleep again." But before she could move, Lien appeared from the mist. "You're wrong," she said. "The heart needed is not blood. It's memory." From her robes, Lien pulled a final lantern. One made of jade and bone. "It holds my grandfather's original promise, the one to protect, not control." She placed it at the center of the pattern. As it lit, green light flowed through the design. The villagers ceased chanting. The robed man screamed, unraveling like smoke. The tiger froze, looked at Lien, and bowed. Then, in a swirl of flame and light, it vanished. The dawn rose slowly over the ruins of the plaza. Ashes swirled like snowflakes above broken stalls and trampled lanterns. Yet amidst the debris, color returned, children laughing nervously, elders sweeping the remnants of fear with handmade brooms. And in the center, Lien sat quietly, her fingers wrapped around the cold frame of the jade lantern, which now lay dark and still. Velma knelt beside her. "You saved the village." Lien shook her head. "No. My grandfather did. Through you." Fred approached, limping from the fight but smiling. "You gave us the key. Without the scrolls, the dance, the symbols, none of this would have worked." "But it almost didn't," Daphne said, her voice tight. "If we hadn't closed the moon gate, if Scooby hadn't drawn the final mark." "Ruha," Scooby barked proudly. Shaggy sat with his back to a cracked pillar, exhaling a long breath. Can we just admit it? We faced a giant ghost tiger, nearly got possessed, danced for our lives, and saved a town from ancient spiritual collapse. I think we deserve cake." "Lots of it," Daphne agreed, finally smiling. The villagers began to gather around them. One elder stepped forward, a woman with deep creases in her face and silver coins woven into her hair. She spoke with reverence. "You honored our past. You gave peace to what was restless. And more importantly, you listened." Velma bowed. "We tried. But we also learned. This wasn't just a haunting. It was a warning." The woman nodded solemnly. "The ancestors do not punish. They remember. And when we forget, they remind." As the town worked together to rebuild the plaza, Fred and Daphne returned to the main stage, now half collapsed. Underneath a loose stone, Fred pulled out something unexpected, an old, sealed box with golden clasps and faded dragon motifs. Inside were fragments of masks, incense bundles, and a scroll even older than the ones Velma had decoded. She examined it carefully. This isn't part of the tiger lore. It's about the phoenix. The next celestial creature. Didn't the pattern at the end shift into a phoenix? Daphne asked. Velma nodded slowly. That symbol igniting beneath the ground wasn't a fluke. The white tiger wasn't just awakened by broken rituals. It was part of a cycle. And now that cycle has moved forward. "So what?" Shaggy said nervously, "does that mean next year we deal with a flaming bird instead of a frosty cat?" "Possibly," Velma replied. "Unless we find a way to complete the entire cycle and restore the balance proactively." Daphne looked out at the villagers. "Then we stay involved. Help them rebuild their history, not just for show, but as a living culture." Lien finally stood, brushing dust from her sleeves. "There's one more place you need to see. My grandfather left something behind, for the next guardians." She led them beyond the plaza, up a narrow, winding path flanked by stone dragons and lantern poles half consumed by ivy. At the top was a shrine, carved into the mountainside. Inside, a mural spanning 3 walls, depicting the celestial beasts of Chinese lore, dragon, tiger, phoenix, and turtle. Each beast was tied to a direction, a season, and a lesson. The festival was meant to realign these energies, Lien explained. Each year focused on one. The tiger's year was always the most dangerous. Velma stepped closer, eyes scanning every symbol. "The ritual we performed was just the second of 4. There are still 3 left." Fred exhaled. "So, if this was the tiger, the phoenix comes next." Lien nodded. "And unlike the tiger, the phoenix doesn't guard. It judges." Shaggy swallowed hard. "Well, maybe it'll judge us, kindly." Everyone laughed. Even Velma allowed herself a small chuckle. Back at the village, new lanterns were being strung, this time with restored inscriptions and traditional symbols carefully drawn by both villagers and the Mystery Incorporated team. Fred organized a new stage with reinforced beams. Daphne taught the younger girls the proper footwork of the ritual dance, now more a celebration than a defense. And that night, when the full moon rose once more over the hilltops, it shone on a plaza reborn, not from fear, but remembrance. Yet far below the earth, where ash met bone, the ember of the phoenix blinked, waiting.